The KSI vs swarmz and pineda event was bloody brilliant. It's not often that you get a boxing event where the main guy fights two people in one night, and especially not when that main event isn't even the best part of the show. This night was absolutely stacked with great matchups of people who are now well known within the YouTube boxing scene. But the matchups weren't just great, the fights themselves delivered. KSI opened up the card, which meant that the crowd was packed right from the beginning. Dean the Great fell right on his face. Salt Poppy smoked Andy Worski with a first round knockout. Kenny had a controversial win over FaZe Sensei. Deji got his redemption and stole the night. Slim surprised everyone by knocking out FaZe temperrr in brilliant fashion. And KSI got his second knockout of the evening after he beat up 23-year-old professional boxer Pineda, who was begging for him to stop. Now, some people are a bit critical of KSI's fights, with good reasoning. I mean, neither of his opponents even stood a chance, they should not have been there with him. And KSI didn't have any opportunity to show that his skill had improved. Everyone knows that he hits hard and that he's ruthless, but next time he definitely has to fight someone who will challenge him technically. However, even though there were some problems with this event, the event was still really fun because it not only provided us with great entertainment, it also helped build up potential contenders within the YouTube boxing scene. I mean, Dean the Great is perfect to set up against an Adam Sala or a FaZe Jarvis. Salt Poppy is a scary dude who'd be a great matchup for anyone. Even the top dogs. Maybe give him a better opponent next time to keep building him up. Despite many people believing that Kenny lost his fight, it was still to FaZe Sensei, who's regarded as one of the best YouTube boxers. And even if he does have two losses, they're against Sensei and temperrr, who by the way looked way better in his last fight than he did on this night. But yes, I seriously believe Kenny is one of the better people in the scene. Deji also solidified himself as a technically gifted boxer who now has the potential to main event future events again. Slim assimilated wonderfully over to the cleaner side of YouTube boxing, and he can go to great heights from now on. And even temperrr should still fight again because I think he has so much more to give and to prove. I don't think either Pineda or swarmz will ever fight again, but KSI obviously can go many places from here as long as he steps up the competition massively. However, it's the name of the whole event that gets me excited. X Series 1. This is just the first event out of many. The second event is already slated for October with Hasim Rahman Jr. versus Vitor Belfort, and Jay Swingler making his return, and obviously there will be more unannounced fighters on that card. But we also know that KSI will be returning in January, most likely, with the potential of seeing Logan Paul back in the ring too. Add Deji, Slim, and Kenny, and it would surpass even this event by miles. Now I know I've been sucking off KSI and Misfits boxing in this video so far, and I don't fucking care, because I really love watching YouTube boxing. This is definitely a controversial opinion, but in recent years, YouTube boxing has sometimes been way more entertaining than real boxing. Now don't get me wrong, the levels are not nearly the same. There's still a massive difference between actual professionals who've dedicated their lives to this sport, where this sport has literally meant life or death to them. It has gotten them out of tough situations. It's not the same. I'm not saying that these privileged YouTubers who just have a lot of money and a lot of time to spare to actually dedicate themselves to the sport, I'm not saying that they're on the same level as professional fighters. I'm more talking about the organization of boxing itself, because in recent years, boxing just has not been giving us all the fights we want. There's so many different promoters who have their own fighters that they want to build up, and we just don't see the big fights that we want to see, and it gets boring. There's too much pride in the professional boxing scene, and it's not the boxers who are the arrogant ones, it's often the promoters. But yes, I just wanted to make that clear because I still stand by that just pure entertainment in recent years, YouTube boxing has sometimes been more enjoyable than actual boxing. And it's not just because of the unpredictability of the fights and the crazy things that can happen, but also because influencers are so good at marketing themselves. The ones who succeed in this YouTube boxing scene are the ones who not only dedicate themselves and take it seriously, but also the ones who understand the importance of hype and promotion. Because promotion breeds hype, and hype breeds entertainment, and entertainment makes us want to keep watching. Essentially, it creates stories, and it's these stories that resonate with us. Deji vs fousey was so much fun to watch, not just because we finally saw Deji win, and he looked great by the way, but it was also the story being told. Fousey was known as the YouTube punching bag because of his loss to Slim, but this time he was dedicated, his mentality seemed right, and he made everyone believe that he was a different monster now. Deji had 3 losses to his name, but the last fight we saw of him gave a slither of a hope shining through in the way his movement had improved so drastically. So this truly was the battle of redemption, and we didn't know who would win. That was what made it fun. But the fact that Deji came out and produced a masterclass like that was for me and many others the best moment of that night. However, it wasn't just Deji versus fousey that benefited from the story. We also had Slim coming in on 2 weeks notice versus FaZe temperrr, who everyone claimed was one of the best in the scene. But Slim was entertaining. He was a bit of a wild card coming into the fight, and he shocked everyone with arguably the knockout of the evening. King Kenny taking on arguably the best technical fighter we've ever seen in YouTube boxing, FaZe Sensei, after his loss to FaZe temperrr, who was trained by FaZe Sensei, was a gutsy move. And despite what you think of the outcome of the fight, there's no doubt that King Kenny has potential, and that he's not afraid to take on the toughest opponents. Salt Poppy is slowly becoming a fan favorite for his personality and surprisingly crisp boxing technique, and he just cemented himself as a real threat by producing a first round knockout. KSI fought 2 people who really shouldn't have been in there with him, which by the way is not KSI's fault in any way. I mean, he just tried to save his event, which he did, but he also has this rivalry with Jake Paul, which will just keep on building as they each keep on fighting. That fight could very well end up being one of the biggest boxing pay-per-view fights of all time, money-wise. I have no doubt about that. So yeah, the reason the influencer boxing works so well is that it's so good at creating stories and fights that we care about. Think about it, how often do we get the fights we really want in professional boxing? People have wanted AJ to fight Wilder or Fury for years and years now, and it never happened. Now, AJ lost all his belts and those fights aren't as big anymore. YouTube boxing is entertaining as hell when done right, which this Misfits card definitely was. All of the fights were fun to watch, definitely the best event so far, but now I want them to keep going. Keep making fight cards that are stacked with good fights. KSI was the main event, but his fights weren't even close to being the best fights of the night. Despite still being entertaining as hell, millions would still have watched KSI just fighting swarmz. But the fact that we got this many great fights is a testament to why YouTube boxing succeeds. However, there are also problems that I can see the YouTube boxing scene potentially running into, and honestly, it has already seen some of them. I just think we need to be more careful not to let these things grow. First of all, I think arrogance is a problem. We've seen this with Awesome mcbroom wanting to make millions off of fights and to make as much as KSI if they fought, when he's really not worth that much. I can also see some fighters not wanting to be on the undercard because they believe that they should be on the main event. That's the thing, so many of the fights last event could have easily been the main event of their own shows, such as Deji fousey, Slim temperrr, and Kenny Sensei. However, the fact that they all agreed to fight on the undercard of KSI's main event meant that this fight card was the most stacked one we've seen so far, and it made it so fucking entertaining. However, I also think that disorganization can become a huge problem, especially if it ends up annoying the officials and the people working on the events. And although the KSI event went along very smoothly from what we saw, by listening to the True Jordy podcast with the Wade concept, there were a lot of issues with tickets and how the event was run behind the scenes. Hopefully the partnership between Misfits and DAZN will keep increasing and we'll see less of this, because yeah, I see it potentially being a problem. Now, match fixing and exploitation is something we've seen a lot already. Most of those Dubai events were shady as hell, and Awesome mcbroom didn't really pay his fighters in this previous event, essentially scamming them all. This is shit that absolutely cannot happen going forward in the upcoming Misfits event because it completely tarnishes the reputation of YouTube boxing. It pisses everyone off, and it would slowly lead to the death of YouTube boxing. Now, last event did not have any of this, at least to our knowledge, and I know that KSI cares a lot about his reputation, so he wouldn't just sell out like that. But yeah, it's definitely something to avoid. However, my final point for today is the possibility of fatigue. What will it look like when we get consistent events for a longer period of time? Will we still be as enthusiastic about all the events, or will we start to burn out from influencer boxing? Only time will really tell, but I think to try and prevent this, the events have to keep progressing. We can't just continue to play it safe, we have to keep innovating, make the fights people want to see, improve on the details and technicalities, and just make sure people stay invested in these events. I know it's so much easier to say this rather than doing it for real, but I'm just giving my 2 cents on what I believe is important to take into consideration for the people running these events. But anyways, that's all for today. I really don't know if any of my audience even follows influencer boxing, but I've been wanting to talk more about it for a long time. And I've realized that if I don't just start making the videos that I want to make, then what's the point? But if you did enjoy this video, then do leave a like and tell me down below, and perhaps I'll make more videos on YouTube boxing. But other than that, I hope you all have a wonderful day, stay safe, and peace out.